Hey guys, welcome back to another video on the Inside Spurs channel. Hope we're well. Hope we're looking after ourselves on this bank holiday weekend. As you can tell, I'm a little bit burnt, okay? Look, I was a bit of an idiot in the sun yesterday. You can blame the guy that makes my thumbnails. It's his birthday, so I'm going to put the blame on him and obviously not on myself, because like most Spurs players or coaches or chairmans, especially chairmans, I'm a good blame deflector. So looking at today is one of my favourite videos, and actually one of my friends asked me to make this video purely on the fact that he is on a one target as a new manager, but he's also the most exciting manager I think that we have on offer. You know, when we look at managers like Luis Enrique, obviously a bona fide winner, a humongous name in the world of football. We're also linked to I keep saying players, Miami lads, but managers like Vincent Kompany, Arne Slot, the list goes on. We're going to be talking about Julian Nagelsmann today, his style of play, his preferred formations, his stats, a lot of stuff, okay? So there's going to be a lot of information today, so I hope you're ready for it. I am. But anyway, guys, if you like this video, by the way, drop a like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Anyway, let's get into it. So Julian Nagelsmann. Now, if you don't know a lot about Julian Nagelsmann, okay, Julian Nagelsmann is a manager from Germany. He started his managerial career forgetting the under sort of 17s and things like that of this world at Hoffenheim in the Bundesliga. He then transitioned to Red Bull Leipzig and then into Bayern Munich, obviously losing his job this season. So on Julian Nagelsmann, first and foremost at Hoffenheim. So at Hoffenheim, okay, if you weren't aware, in his first season at in his time at Hoffenheim, he managed 136 different games. He won 55, drew 43, and lost 38. His average points per game were 1.53. Now, on the face of things, that doesn't sound very good. But let's be frank, in Germany, it's about Bayern Munich and Dortmund. Really, at that time, I guess Leverkusen could be thrown into that hat as well. Leipzig kind of hadn't started that trajectory up the league. And obviously, Union Berlin weren't really a notable club at the time. So this period under Hoffenheim. Now, with Hoffenheim, he actually took over them when they were actually in their bottom three. So really, really struggled Hoffenheim at the time when Nagelsmann took over. When he left them, he had actually made them a Champions League team. So that's a huge uptake. You're talking about, a 12 to 13 place swing in the league. He had them playing much better football. He recruited very, very well under that time in Hoffenheim. And obviously from that situation, he actually got the job at Red Bull Leipzig under kind of a influence to the board from Ralf Rangnick, which we're going to talk a little bit about him a little bit later on. So under his time at Leipzig, so this is from July 2019 to June 2021. So we're talking about 2 years worth of time here at the club. He managed 95 times for them. He'd won 54, drawn 22 and lost 19. So in his time, from Hoffenheim being 2.5 years of worth of time, 3.5 years, sorry, I can't count up to 3 apparently, to his time in Leipzig, he'd actually lost half the games. He'd won pretty much the exact same, and he had drawn 20 less. So you're talking about already getting the same amount of points from wins and actually saving a lot more in terms of his losses at the time. So his average points per game were 1.94. So we're talking about 2 points per game, which when you're looking at the Premier League, if you had 2 points per game, we're looking at 76 points, which is top 4 every single year pretty much, okay? Sometimes it's won the league. That's how many points that is, right? Obviously, his time at Red Bull Leipzig obviously brought through a lot of big names, like a lot. Under Ralf Rangnick as well, the sort of Red Bull, firm, as I'll call them, as a partnership, as a controlling firm, they'd obviously managed to bring through a lot of big names. If you think of Red Bull's Salzburg, you think of Szoboszlai, you think of Haaland. If you think of Leipzig, you think of Marcel Sabitzer. There's a lot. Okay, I'm not going to go into it all. But we're looking at just 2 seasons worth, and he's actually done very, very well at Leipzig. He then obviously gets the job to Bayern Munich, where he managed 84 times between July 2021 and March 2023. Obviously, just March it's been. Obviously lost his job to Thomas Tuchel. In that time, he managed 84 times. He won 60, drawn 14, and lost 10. So in 1 in every 8, he'll lose 1. 1 in every 8, he'll draw 1, and the rest he'll win, right? His average points per game were 2.31. So obviously very, very dominant. I know Bayern Munich are kind of that dominant team in the Bundesliga. It's kind of a one-man race and all that jazz. I understand that. But when I look at sort of the things that he was doing with Leipzig and he was doing with Bayern Munich in terms of style of play, you kind of see how impressive actually all of his times were through Hoffenheim, Leipzig, and obviously Bayern Munich. His preferred formation, a lot of places sort of differ around that. I'm going to go into sort of a little bit more about that as to why it sort of works for him, okay? So a bit of a backstory to Julian Nagelsmann. He was only 28 years old when Hoffenheim made him their manager, okay? To give you context, what they said was he was only 16 when Mourinho won the 04 Champions League with Porto, and he was born a year after Ferguson got the Man United job. So seriously young dude in terms of the world of football, okay? He was very, very heavily influenced in terms of the style of play of pressing from the front from Ralf Rangnick. Now, Gegen's press, that is the term, okay, that Rangnick developed. And he talked to Tuchel, he talked to Klopp, he talked to Nagelsmann. And those three have turned out to be pretty all right managers, okay? Through that time, under his style of play, his playing style has changed so much, okay? So he normally sets up through a 3-5-2 system, okay? So 3 centre-halves with 2 wing-backs / left mid, right mid, 3 central midfielders and 2 strikers, okay? But within that position and formation, they change a lot. It's quite free-flowing, which this is what excited me most when I looked at it. So through that system of the 3-5-2, while they had possession, they changed between 2 different formations, a 3-4-3 and then in a 5-3-2, depending if they were defending, okay? His 3 central halves always play out from the back, okay? And it's the idea of one of them to be the main focal point of getting the ball forward, okay? So that might be, if he's playing a 3 at the back at Bayern Munich, it might be Matthias de Ligt is the guy that has to get it into Joshua Kimmich, right? You see what I mean? That is the job of that central half, is to make sure they can progress that ball. Now, sometimes, obviously, teams know that scouting-wise, they'll try and take that away. And that's when it will fall onto Upamecano or Benjamin Pavard, right? So that's sort of the style of play that he sort of developed whilst at Hoffenheim. When he was at Leipzig, obviously he had better players and his approach definitely changed. You could easily tell this. So his team's basic structure was a 5-2-3. So 2 central midfielders, 5 at the back with 2 wing-backs, 2 wingers or attacking midfielders and a striker. But they demonstrated similar principles to Hoffenheim when they looked at a 3-5-2 and then also a 3-4-3, which has obviously been a massive formation for Spurs this year and last year under Conte. With Son and Kulusevski out wide, you obviously have, let's say as a general thing, Perisic and Emerson Royale as your wing-backs, okay? So through this, a lot of this style of play that he develops isn't about bombing balls into the box, like a Liverpool, for example. A lot of his system is about creating opportunity from, it's quote, central lanes. So what that'll be is through the centre attacking mid, maybe into Kane, vice versa, whatever it might be, right? And he also worked a lot about playing the balls in behind the defence. And at Leipzig, this was massive for Timo Werner. That's why he got the Chelsea move, because he was running into space, creating more opportunities for the guys coming in behind him. Maybe it'd be a Kevin Campbell, maybe a Conrad Lima, maybe, I don't know who else. It could have been bucket loads of people. Hell, it could have been me running behind, because he would have created that much space for me and I would have travelled from England, right? After Werner, I'm talking about, after he moved from Chelsea, they moved to a 4-2-3-1. So you can see he changes the system based on the players. It's not always about forcing a player into a system that doesn't suit him. And at the end of the day, that's the important thing. Work with the limitations of your squad. Pep's only recently developed this whole 3 at the back system, okay? He was always very much a 4-3-3, a 4-2-3-1, a 4-2-4. But he was always with the 4 back. Now he's developed this 3 back / 5 back in defence, and it offers another avenue, a different style of play that managers are hard to press. It's hard to prepare for when you've only got a couple of days, when you're looking at Man City playing potentially 7 or 8 different formations. That's why it's so difficult to pin Man City down. And that's why I think it's important that we have a manager that can do something fairly similar. Because I think with Conte, there was quite rigid, the 3-4-3, the 3-5-2. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Can't really do a lot about it. Obviously, evidenced by the players that when we do play a 4-back, we get absolutely ravaged and destroyed by Newcastle. And Conte was obviously right about that. But also, through his time at Leipzig, compared to Hoffenheim, obviously better quality of players, different style of play in terms of his possession build-up, and it's just kind of more variety when they did that, okay? obviously, their wing-backs at the time that he was using at Leipzig were Angelino on the left and Nordi Mukiele on the right, who got a move to PSG last summer. It's more about, as when they get the ball, it's more about actually those two wing-backs changing a style. So what I mean by that is, when you normally see Man City right now, Kyle Walker or John Stones is the right back, and left back is normally Nathan Ake now. Obviously, it was João Cancelo. But the idea is, when it was João Cancelo would bomb forward, create lots of opportunity, really was attacking more like a left winger at times. But Kyle Walker would come in and make the two, sitting at the back, a three, and obviously Rodri would be dictating from the middle, right? The idea is always to have one attacking player as a fullback move forward, the other one tuck in and give help defensively. So at Bayern Munich, obviously Alphonso Davies would be moving forward and Benjamin Pavard would come and sit in. Hence why Benjamin Pavard this year has been quite a decent centre-half, because he's been moving in so much to make it a 3 instead of it a 4-4, 4 at back, you know? So at Leipzig, it was always Angelino creating more in terms of going forward, and Mukiele would come and sit in more of a centre-back situation, okay? So that I found quite interesting. When we think of our fullbacks, especially for next season, you're looking at Destiny Udogie and Pedro Porro. Who's going to be the one that maybe drops in a bit more? Maybe do they suit the system? Maybe he changes the system. And again, that's the thing. It's being creative and adaptive to create the system around the players that you have. So that's always quite interesting. So what this also sort of went on to talk about is how when opponents regularly responded to the numbers attacking through the centre by defending with similar numbers, in turn leaving them vulnerable to Leipzig attacking through the outside. So it was interesting when they talked about the rotations through the central midfield area with Sabitzer, Dani Olmo, Konrad Laimer, Emil Forsberg. There's quite a few there. In terms of, if Leipzig are going to absolutely bombard that area, we'll press that area. And that's when Angelino was so crucial, because it created so much width that they couldn't really stop it. So not only was Werner that guy running in behind, creating all that space, and teams obviously having to defend towards the space, then creating the space in the midfield for the guys who are going to create that attacking through the midfield rotations. But also, if they then honed in on that, it added in the space for Werner or an Angelino, right? Which, again, very, very interesting. But he also likes players that can play in that pivot. So moving into the pivot, this was the interesting thing with Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich normally played a 4-2-3-1. The pivot being Joshua Kimmich or Leon Goretzka, occasionally Jamal Musiala, but normally it was the two main Germans, okay? In his first season, obviously had Lewandowski up front, so Müller was the number 10 sitting in behind. Obviously, you might have a Leroy Sané and a Kingsley Coman. Now, speaking of those two, he likes wingers playing on the side that they're strongest. So Leroy Sané being a left footer, left wing, Kingsley Coman right foot, right wing. Make sense? But that wasn't for them to bomb balls into the box. It wasn't for Lewandowski to have, 100 crosses to play with every single game. Not at all. What it was is it allowed them to attack on the outside of their opposing fullbacks and to cut back, but also increases the space for Lewandowski and Müller in the midfield. So this is why it's adaptive. He had wingers that were so good at beating their men one-on-one that it created that space through the centre to allow maybe a Kimmich to play the ball into a Müller, into a Lewandowski. You see what I mean through there. And again, that wasn't the system they played at Leipzig or Hoffenheim, so it's very adaptive, and that's what I quite like. He uses data and he uses information that he gets in terms of the quality of players that he has to actually provide and build a formation suited to them, for them to go and then use that ability in that system to provide more in terms of wins instead of draws or losses, right? Again, very interesting situation there. In terms of when you look at their system, now I talked about the back four that they have. I talked about Pavard coming in and Davies playing more of a left mid role. And again, it just creates so much more space. When Lewandowski, Müller, those guys were getting sort of hounded through the centre, Davies had just a free lane to do whatever he wanted. And that's why Davies was, team of the season, team of the year, that sort of thing in the world of football, because he had so much availability just to attack. Obviously, I know Bayern Munich hold a lot of the possession anyway when they play. But again, it's what you do with the possession. That's the important thing, okay? So after Lewandowski obviously left for Barca in the summer just been, obviously that changed the system. They brought in Mane, but they didn't bring in a out-and-out striker to basically replace Lewandowski. That's why Choupo-Moting was the guy really from there. And Musiala moved more into a number 10 role instead of it being Thomas Muller to sit behind, obviously, Choupo-Moting. And again, it was more about creating through the centre, I guess, because, look, there's no point crossing. You haven't got a big man like Lewandowski to absolutely destroy the teams. Choupo-Moting's decent in the air, but he's no Lewandowski. So already they crossed no times really per game. It was mental. They barely crossed. They really honed back on it again because what's the point? Let's play through the centre. Let's play this press when they have the ball in their half to try and create easy opportunities. And that's the thing, creating easy opportunities through the gegenpress. Pochettino developed this press that we would press high, we'd press into corners and try and get easy, cheap goals, basically. You saw it when we were in our prime. I say prime, but you saw it when we were finishing second or the Champions League runs. We would press very high, win the ball, and try and score from being 20 yards out or 30 yards out instead of breaking a team all the way down from goalkeeper all the way forward, which we had the ability to do from time to time. But let's be honest, we all fancy a cheap goal from time to time, don't we? So in terms of defending and pressing, so the other side, we talked about the attack and we talked about how he was very versatile with his formations, versatile in his style of play, depending on the players that he has. Let's talk about the other side. Spurs is in the last 6 games have conceded, I think, 17. This was before Conte. Under Conte's last 6 games, we conceded 6 goals. So you can tell the defending has really gotten poor recently. Look at Eric Dyer being the main culprit of that. Not good enough defensively. You can kind of see all over Twitter and Instagram, people are kind of fed up with Dyer being here. Not to be mean, I'm not saying that or anything like that, but what I'm saying is he's been given a free ride a lot of the time. At right back, he wasn't really that good enough. He was only good at centre defensive mid when he had Moussa Dembele to the side of him. Obviously, most people would look good again with Moussa Dembele to the side of him. But when we're looking at it now, he then moved to centre back when we lost Jan and Toby, and it's not really been that good. Let's be frank, okay? So this is important when we look at it, okay? They were successful in their pressing with a lone striker. So it didn't have to be 2 up front. It didn't have to be 3 up front. They could press with 1 and the 2 central attacking midfielders pressing alongside him. But they also pressed in a narrow system. So the idea is they tried to take away the width. They're going to play within the narrow, but try and cut off certain lanes, okay? If they bombarded their own players through the centre, then you're normally, the guy that would be holding in a pivot would press up as well to create a diamond system, basically, okay? And that allowed more so you to kind of just press the ball into your own players and you go from there straight away, okay? Being 25 yards out instead of, we're going to win the ball at right back and we'll press from right back, okay? So in the system when, Leipzig would have the players out wide, what you'll find is they create the double pivot. So you'd have the 2 centre defensive mids plus the number 10 dropping in. So Kimmich, Goretzka, Musiala, right? So they would drop in through there, okay? He was always built this up from Hoffenheim. It's never been something that's quite new to him. He's always pressed very high. There's no sitting back with Nagelsmann. It's press high, win the ball high, we play from high, okay? So in terms of this as well, that requires them, normally teams, just to play long and press long, okay? But that's fine. Obviously, if you're winning the ball on the halfway line because they've hoofed it long, that's fine because you've pressed so high. But now you've already got the players in a high position that you quickly play from the centre backs or the right back or wing backs into the players. You press up. That centre back that I talked about, Matthias de Ligt, playing the ball into centre defensive mid being Kimmich, you play straight away. Kimmich gets the ball, you move the ball quick. You get it into a Musiala, you get it into a Sane, a Coman, a Choupo-Moting, whatever it might be, you get the ball quickly into the players that are going to score you the goals or get you the assists. That's the way that should be, right? So he developed that really all the way from Hoffenheim through Leipzig, then through into Bayern Munich, okay? Now at Bayern Munich, he's 4-2-3-1 could also become a 4-4-2 or a 4-4-2 diamond. So when I talk about how they press in a diamond, that makes a bit of sense. Sometimes it doesn't work in terms of 2 guys up front in a diamond. It could be a striker, 2 central attacking midfielders, and a pivot player. That could also be the diamond that we're talking about, okay? But in the diamond at Bayern, they would work on a 2-man front. So when they had Lewandowski and Muller up top, they would press together as a 2. You would then find you would get Goretzka, who would come from the pivot into a diamond position right behind them. and you'd have Sane out on the left or Coman or Gnabry out on the right, who would press from a little bit wider, attacking inwards, and then Kimmich would follow in from behind to create that diamond in behind, okay? Your then back four would then just press high right behind Kimmich, okay? So if they press long, the idea is you need quick fullbacks to cover from behind. Eric Dyer wouldn't be that guy. Romero has a bit of speed, but you probably need at least someone who has a bit of speed behind them, okay? Look at what Man City are doing with Haaland. You need someone that can, not say match Haaland toe-to-toe, but keep in distance with him so he doesn't run away from anyone, right? Both wide forwards, when we talk about the Sane, Gnabry or Coman, they're instructed to work back to join Goretzka and Kimmich in forming a sort of a flat midfielder, a 4-4-2 really. Or they might create a 4-4-1-1 where Kimmich then drops in just in front of the two pivot players, right? That was to form a flat line because the mid-block in his system is required, or a diamond shape when attempting to press. Whichever approach Bayern took, the wide midfield was covering on the inside channel before jumping out to press, allowing Goretzka and Kimmich to support the pressing efforts with the front two, okay? And that was the important thing. Not one player presses and the rest sort of dilly-dally. If one goes, we all go. That's the idea. And when Spurs were dominant under Pochettino, Kane would go, Ali would be chasing right in behind. You'd have Lamela and Son coming in as well, or is it an Eriksen, whatever it might be. But then Moussa Dembele would press really high. And then that would allow Wanyama or a Dyer, whoever it might be, to sit into that gap, which allows everyone to press in. Okay, that kind of makes sense. So that's a little bit about the pressing and defending, the attacking and all that jazz. I'm not going to go into too much more. I think I've probably bored quite a few people with this, if I'm honest. They probably think, who the hell cares? Can he win us games? Which is fair enough. The answer is yes, he can win games. He can also win games with lovely football. And I think a lot of Spurs fans, I saw this, and half don't care about the football. They want to win stuff. Half just care about the football. He's a bit of both. He can win things. He can also play a style of play, which is a lot like Klopp's, but it's more, I'd say, a mixture between a Guardiola and a Klopp in terms of Klopp is, let's bomb the ball into the box from wide, and Pep's more like, let's play through the centre, we can break them down. Nagelsmann's a bit of both. And I think that's the exciting thing. He presses, when we think about the press that I was talking about, he presses alongside the idea of, a Klopp, a Tuchel, a Pep even. But I would say the other thing is he obviously left back in March 2023. This is obviously an appointment that we're looking at summer. I think we're going to ride with Mason all the way through to the end, and then we'll look at appointing Nagelsmann. When you see reports that we think he's outpriced himself, his average salary at Bayern Munich was 9 million euros. We paid Conte 15 million pounds. We paid Mourinho pretty much the same. So it's never, paying a manager a lot of money is not an issue for us, and that isn't an issue. Nagelsmann's not going to have that situation. And in the summer, we don't have to give Bayern Munich a fee. It's only now, between now and the end of the season, we'd have to give Bayern Munich a fee because he's on gardening leave. He's not fully terminated, okay? But since him leaving Bayern Munich, let's be frank, has Thomas Tuchel done a good job? No. Simple as that, he hasn't, okay? So it's all sweet and glory, but sometimes the grass isn't always greener, okay? But anyway, guys, that's the end of the video. I've always obviously talked about how I would like Julian Nagelsmann, but let me know what you guys want. Let me know if you enjoyed this sort of thing. There's a lot of talk about formation, style of play, and I understand. Take time watching it. There's no problem for me. But anyway, drop a like. Hit me with your own comments about Julian Nagelsmann. Maybe he's not the guy for you. Maybe Mason's the guy for you. Enrique, Slot, whoever it might be. Hell, if it's me. If it's me, you're a bit foolish. But anyway, drop a subscribe if you are new. Bell notification as usual. Anyway, guys, that's the video. I'll see you all very, very soon. Take care, lads.